I remember that supper with Jesus. It was both the best night of my life and one of the worst nights of my life. I remember. Jesus had caused a lot of havoc and trouble. And so when he said, I want to go to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover meal, we didn't know what was going to go on. But we got to Jerusalem, and he sent John and me into town to find a place to have the meal. And we found this place that was already prepared, just like Jesus had said it would be. I remember how the 13 of us gathered together, and I just had this sense that this was going to be different. I had had this Passover meal with Jesus a couple times previously, but this one just seemed different from the very get-go. I didn't know what it was. It just seemed different. And I remember a kind of angst in my soul that this might be the last time I dine with my rabbi. I remember him giving us the command, love one another as I have loved you. And my mind recalled what Jeremiah had said, that I have loved you with an everlasting love. And to think that we need to love others like that. Now, I had some trouble with that over the last 3 years. For one of the other disciples was Andrew, my brother. How do you love your brother? And then James and John, my two best friends, but best friends always argue. But I was to love one another? We were to love one another? And then to try to help us understand what this love is, Jesus took his outer garment off and put on a towel. And there was some music from the skies. And he got down on his knees, and he took a pitcher and a bowl, and he started to wash our feet. Now, you may or may not know this, but when we walked around Jerusalem and we walked around the countryside, it is really dusty. And our feet gets really dirty. And most of the time when we would go into a room, there'd be a servant that would come and wash our feet, or we would just wash our own feet. But this night, we were so consumed with the Passover dinner that none of that happened. So Jesus, just telling us to love one another as I have loved you, started washing our feet. James and John and Andrew and Matthew and Thaddeus and Simon and all the others. And he came to me and I said, no, stop. There's no way you're going to wash my feet. I should have washed your feet. And Jesus said, you don't know what you're saying. If I don't wash your feet, you can't have anything to do with me. And I said, well, then wash all of me. I'm all in. He said, no, your head and your hands don't need bathed. You bathed this morning. You just need your feet washed. But then a few moments after that, he started talking about what was going to happen to him later that night. And it really bothered me. And because he was talking about how all of us would abandon him. And he looked directly at me and said, Peter, you're going to deny me. You're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. I said, no, I'm all in, Jesus. That will never happen. I will die for you. Then we went to the garden. I remember those words that he prayed. I didn't understand them at the time, but I remember what he said. Not my will, Father, but yours be done. And I remember how I was ashamed because as he was praying and he had asked me and James and John to pray with him, we fell asleep. And I remember Judas coming with the religious leaders and the Roman soldiers, how Judas kissed Jesus on the cheek and he was led away, and what Jesus had said happened. We all fled. We thought of ourselves and our own safety, and we did not defend Jesus. Well, I tried a little bit. I took my sword and cut off a guy's ear. Malchus was not happy with that, and Jesus was not happy with that. He put the ear right back on his head. But we abandoned him. In his greatest hour of trial, we abandoned him. I abandoned him. I remember when Jesus was led to the trials, John was able to get me into the courtyard so I can kind of keep an eye on what was going on. And the servant girl that led us in, she took one look at me and said, "You were with him." I said, "No, woman, you have no idea what you're talking about." A few minutes later, I'm warming myself at the fire. Someone else comes to me and says, "I think you are with him. I think you're one of the disciples." "No, I'm not with him." Then one of the high priest servants, apparently a nephew of Malchus, the guy that I cut the ear off of, he came up to me and said, "I saw you in the garden." I said, No, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't know him. And as soon as I said no, that 3rd time, oh my goodness. I had done it. I had denied my rabbi 3 times, just like he said. I looked towards Jesus and he looked right at me. But you know what? I expected anger and bitterness, resentment. All I saw was the eyes of love. And his lips moved a little bit, and I think he might have said, "I love you, Peter." Well, the next several hours were unbearable. Jesus was led down the road carrying his own cross. They went to this hill called Golgotha, and they put him on the cross to die. Only John was at the foot of the cross. The rest of us didn't want to be seen near him. I was close enough that I could hear what he said. And he said, the most loving thing I've ever heard. As he's there looking at the soldiers mocking him, he's looking at the people that say, "Crucify him, crucify him." Do you know what he said? He looked up to heaven and he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." What love. I knew right that moment what Jeremiah was talking about, loving us with an everlasting. I didn't know what I was going to do without my rabbi. I had given up my occupation. I'd given up my family. that I could follow him. I didn't know what to do. A couple days later, on the day after the Sabbath, John and I were together. And Mary Magdalene comes running in, out of breath. Peter, John, I went to the tomb, and it's open. The stone is rolled away. I don't know what happened. Now, I don't run as fast as I used to. I'm an old man now. And John's a little younger than me. We both bolted out of that room. And John got to the tomb a little bit before me. And he stopped at the edge of the tomb. But you know me. I'm not going to stop. So I went right into the tomb once I caught up. And I looked, and there was the grave clothes that Jesus had worn. It's as if he got up and carefully folded them together and put them aside. John was like, Peter, didn't he say he would raise on the third day? I'm not sure how I heard that because I was so bewildered and confused. I had no idea what was going on, what was happening. Could Jesus be alive? Later that day, he appeared to us right out of the wall, out of nowhere. And he showed us the nail prints. And he ate like us and said, I am with you. Peace. I am with you. Do not fear. The next several weeks, we didn't see Jesus much. But I remember this one time. John, James, Andrew, and I had gone fishing, and we had a really bad night. It reminded me of that first night that I met Jesus. I remember how we fished all night, and we didn't catch one fish. And just like that first time that I met Jesus, he said, put the nets on the other side. And just like that first time I met Jesus, I remember it was the biggest catch I had ever had in my life. And so this time, when I put the nets over the side, and it was the biggest catch I had ever had in my life. And John said, I think it's Jesus. I immediately took off my outer rope and I swam as fast as I could to him. Afterwards, we took a walk. And he said, Simon Peter, feed my lambs. Simon Peter, do you love me? Feed my sheep. Simon Peter, do you love me? And I remembered, love one another as I have loved you. And I also remembered what Jeremiah said. I brought my scroll with me to help me out a little bit. It was one of his lamentations. I remember my affliction, my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I well remember them, and my soul is downcast within me. Man, after Jesus died on that cross, my soul was so downcast within me. Yet this I call to mind, Jeremiah wrote, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed. For his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. And I remember through all the miracles and through all the teachings, I remember his faithfulness and his love. Great is his faithfulness. I remember that. What do you remember?